We don't fish jigs, but we know some people do. You know, some people with, I don't know. I got some friends that fish jigs. I used to fish jigs. I've heard that they actually catch fish, but I think that's just a rumor. So I'm going to tie this for people who are really unscrupulous. Use a molded lead head. But since I'm sort of a fly fisherman, I'm going to use a dumbbell eye. Another way to do this is get a big brass bead, put a pin through it, and then lash that pin to this hook shaft. So you cut the pin off, the pin comes out here, and you have a big brass bead sitting out there. You don't want to weight these too lightly. This is a plated extra large dumbbell. You want these to sink. And I'm going to just secure this to the front end. This is a Gamakatsu 90 degree. These are amazing hooks. They call it a heavy wire hook. It is not heavy wire, but it is strong and they are sticky sharp. This happens to be a 2/0. That's a really good steelhead size fly. By the way, figure 8 and then wrap around. And if I were going to do some of these in advance, I'd use my Zap-A-Gap right here. Since I don't have any accelerant handy, I'm going to pass on the Zap-A-Gap, and I'm just going to put a little bit of cement on here. Now, these are really simple to tie. Think about this. I'm going to use 3 marabou quills. One color in the center, and 2 contrasting colors on the side. So for the center, I'm going to choose a grizzly dyed blood quill. Hairline makes these. They're just gorgeous. How long? I want it to be... And by the way, notice I didn't run the thread all the way back. I'm going to tie this marabou in fairly close to the dumbbells. So there's my center piece of marabou. Notice how tough these are to tie. I just pulled out the center of that marabou quill, and I want the sides to be about the same length as the centerpiece. So I trim that in advance. I'll tie that side on. Then I'm going to trim this.
Are you taking the thick stem out there? Is that what you're doing?
It's not so much the stem. I want the tips to line up.
Okay.
And some quills you can pinch these and the fibers from the back to the front of the feather all line up. But sometimes what happens, see, these fibers here really won't line up with the tips out there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why on a feather like this, I would want to trim that out so the tips line up nicely. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm trying to achieve.
Okay.
You know, I don't see how a guy could do these videos all by himself. You need a friend to ask you some of these questions. So this is going to line up on this other side. And now, you don't have to, but I'm going to add in just a couple. You can use crystal flash on the, you can use all sorts of flashy products. This is opal flashabou. I really just want a couple strands on each side. And boy, if you use 2 strands on these jigs instead of not using it, you are virtually assured of catching a lot more fish. And don't take that very seriously, okay? But it looks nice. Trim that a little bit longer, just a tiny bit longer than your marabou. Put some on both sides. Now, you could very easily just tie this off right here. but since we are real craftspeople, we are going to put a little dubbing loop on here. If we wanted to, we could use a bright color. I'm going to put a dark color in there. I'm going to spin up my dubbing real quick here. Now if Rob was doing this, he'd have that dubbed now. Now the reason I'm holding this to the top is so I don't get my marabou caught up in that loop. I'm going to wrap this to cover my thread, and I'm going to finish it off just in front of the dumbbell. And again, I'm going to wrap my main thread 3 times around my dubbing loop. Hey buddy! I'm going to tie this off. You notice I didn't put those dumbbell eyes right in the corner. If you put them right up at the 90-degree bend, they tend to get unruly on you. It can be pretty, it can be a fight to the finish there. A little whip finish there. Trim your thread, and you are good to go. You see, this gives you the contrasting color in the center. Gives you a little bit of flash. Now, color combinations. All pink. Fantastic. Pink and white. Peach and white. I really like these grizzly blood quills. All black. All purple. White and blue. For low water conditions, a gray. A flat gray jig. I wouldn't know anything about fishing these. I've forgotten everything I ever knew, but I hear they're pretty effective. And that's good. Thank you.